Welcome to a new FPL season 2022-2023. It's been a while, guys. Obviously, if you knew from last season, I had a little baby girl doing a lot of childcare, but I'll be back for this season. Fingers crossed, hopefully. Here's the first draft. I'm going to be explaining why I've chosen these players and why I really like them, why I've gone for the 4-4-2, and then we'll go through some key omissions and why I've not put those very popular players into these squads. So I'm going to get straight into it, guys. Let's have a look. First key thing before I get into this, I want to just mention, you're going to see a lot of people telling you already, this is a template, it's going to be this, don't get these players if you're going to be boring, or, you know, don't get Salah and Harland, it's going to be template. Ignore them, right? Because at the moment, effective ownership, we don't even know genuinely how owned things are going to be right now. And also just start to it. This season, I'm going to be ignoring effective ownership and go for points. Don't let the Twitter bubble or YouTube communities or whatever tell you that your squad is just going to be another template pick. Fine. Tell you what, start game week 1 template. Because last season's game week 1 template was an absolute firestorm. It kicked off really well. So it's better to start with everyone and branch off into your own ideas rather than think, well, I'm not going to get Salah just because everyone else is going to get him and it's boring. If you want to play that way, fantastic, fine. But don't let other people sway you to say, oh, well, that's just another template team. Play for points first, and then if you want to branch out, then branch out. So starting off with goalkeepers, I have gone for Ederson, and I'm going to explain why. Mendy right now at 5 million Chelsea is a fantastic choice. However, Chelsea have lost Rudiger and Christensen. Their centre-backs or defenders like Azpilicueta and Thiago Silva are not getting any younger. They've not really reinforced that defence just yet. Maybe there's still talk about, I think it's Kwande from Sevilla, the French centre-back, maybe coming in. But as of right now, we're not going to bring in players into our drafts with maybes, ifs and buts, right? We can just play the game, what's in front of us. So I've gone for Ederson, 5.5 million, back-to-back, whatever, Golden Glove winner, and I was tempted by the 5 million Kyle Walker right back. I thought that would be sensational, but when I looked at transfer market, he had a couple of injuries, and towards the end of the season, he's not so much nailed, whereas Ederson is, when we're talking about Manchester City, one of the most nailed you can get. Why not Alisson? 5.5 million. Because I think the 3 outfield slots for Liverpool can be more nailed rather than for Manchester City. And the double up with Cancelo, I think, is just fine. If you still want to do 4.5 million rotations of the Brighton goalkeeper Sanchez and the Brentford goalkeeper Raya, for example, I still think that's a completely viable option. But to get into a potential double Manchester City clean sheet defense, I think Ederson and Cancelo is the way. Walker would have been fantastic if he can get that right back position nailed for Man City, but with Cucurella, the Brighton left back, potentially going to Manchester City again, and with Walker not being so nailed anymore, I just think it's better to go 5.5 Ederson nailed, but Mendy at 5 million is also a fantastic choice in my opinion. Moving on to the defense, you can see I've got Cancelo and I've got Trent Alexander-Arnold. This is the point I was making earlier about, oh, it's so template, why are you going to get these guys? Look, we're talking about a 7 million Cancelo, a ridiculously priced 7.5 million Trent Alexander-Arnold. Both of them, the 2 defenders that scored over 200 points. Both of them in the best defenses in the league. Both of them basically playing midfielder or winger. Fine, call it template. But when you start in the season, and with the run as well that Liverpool have got and that City have got, and you're talking about 2 of the best players in defense basically as wingers in the entire FPL game, I think it's crazy to not go with these guys. Also, I've gone for Trippier and Cash, so it's kind of big at the back, but with 4 players over 5. And I'll explain when I come to my midfielders and why I've got 2 attackers a bit later on. But I've gone for Trippier because Newcastle have a nice 2 opening games to the fixture, and Cash as well. Aston Villa have a nice, good run in. Cash is one of the I think he's the best defender outside of the top 4 in terms of points. He outscored a lot of top players last year, and he's completely nailed at Villa. I think he was one of just 2 players who played like all games last year, really attacking right back. And again, good opening fixtures for Matty Cash and Aston Villa. So if we go over to this screen, you can see it's a big omission in my defense. It is a very popular early pick. And that's Ivan Perisic, the new signing at Spurs here. 49.6% owned already, 5.5 million. Why is he not in my side? It's not even about the money. It's not really about the fixtures. It's about the player in this situation. One, on the left side, they've got Sessegnon and they've got Reguilón. On the right side, they've got Emerson Royale and they've got the Irish Cafu in Matt Doherty. I think there's going to be a lot of rotation. He could be perfect, right? Because if he starts, I imagine him potentially getting subbed 60, 65 minutes and getting that clean sheet. He's got such competition there at Spurs. He is aging and he's an unproven new Premier League player. And for that price, I just would rather stick with Cash and Trippier and go to Perisic. Because first game of the season, they've got Southampton, but the second game, they've got Chelsea, who, even though defensively they might be suffering a little bit, in attack, I think Spurs are still incredibly strong, but so are Chelsea. For me, 5.5 million, it's a wait and see. I'm happy to bring him in later on. The first opening 2 fixtures for Cash and Trippier are a lot better from Perisic. I know what I'm getting with Cash and Trippier. I don't even know if Perisic is going to start yet. It's just unknown. He's a free transfer. I know he's very popular. He's got a great reputation, but unproven in the Premier League is not how I want to start the season. Touching on other notable absences, James and Chilwell, both great attacking fullbacks, but again, we know from last season, Chilwell getting over a very serious injury. Reece James, he's going to get you 20 points, and then for the next 10 game weeks, he's going to get you 0, 1, or maybe even 2. And again, coming back to the idea of me and defenders, I love those explosive, high-ceiling defenders. You know, last summer, on the Fantasy Football Scout channel and on here and pretty much everywhere, I was sort of known as like the 5 at the back guy, which is fine because I think the value and everything was there. But Chelsea, at the end of the day, I still want clean sheets from my defense. I think I can, even in the first couple of games, get 1 clean sheet out of 2 for Cash and Trippier. Tomiyasu, you can see, is my 5th choice defender. Great opening sort of 10 to 15 fixtures for Tomiyasu, who can come in and maybe get a clean sheet there. And then I've got big boys Trent and Cancelo. So the problem is James and Chilwell on their day can get a huge haul and great attacking assets. And if you want to risk on them, I completely understand. But coming back to the point I made about Mendy not being my goalkeeper, Mendy's still great price at 5 million. James and Chilwell could do bits, but it doesn't matter if your wing backs are so attacking and great. If you can't keep clean sheets because your defense has taken such a loss in the likes of Rudiger and Christensen, which I really think it has. So again, I don't want to start the season where I feel a team has become weaker than last season. And the last sort of 5 to 10 games of the season with Chelsea with me just sort of put me off starting the season with them this year. Just a couple of notable absences as well. You can see I don't have Robertson, but that's because I've chosen to go for Diaz, Salah and Trent rather than Robertson, Alexander and Salah. So Diaz gets the nod over Robertson on there because when I talk about the midfielders in a minute, I think there's a little bit of a quality gap. I think this year, until we see the Premier League action, we're not going to know where those great sort of last season Jared Bowen type players are going to come in. So again, I'm starting the season with players that are tried, tested, and what I think are well priced. And I think there's good defenders for me to choose from. So I don't need Robertson as much as I think I need Diaz. 7 million for Robertson. I could go Diaz to Mahrez and try and get Robertson in there. That is a possibility that could change. Vestergaard for 4 million. Not too bad if he's going to be bench Foster. Why have I gone Tomiyasu over White? White's going to have Saliba coming back challenging for that place. I still think Ben White's first choice, so that's fine if you've gone for him. But Tomiyasu, I think, is the nail right back if he can stay fit. Diaz and Laporte, choosing one of those. So if you want to go for the double Man City defense, that's fine. I just think 5.5 million for Edison, who's going to pretty much play every game, over a Diaz or Laporte who could at times get rotated out. You can see Justin here, but the entire Leicester defense. I know Leicester last season were pants, absolutely pants at keeping clean sheets. But the fact that their entire defense is 4.5 million, the biggest exciting player that I want to see is Ricardo Pereira. If this guy can come back in for 4.5 million, what a steal. But they're all 4.5 million because we don't know who's going to be their fullbacks. You've got Castagna as well. Timothy Castagna, another great option that if, when the green runner fixtures come from, say, game week 6 or game week 9 onwards, that could be a player that comes in for like Tomiyasu if they've not gone too much up in price. Because I think 4.5 million for a Leicester fullback is not bad value whatsoever. Also, just a couple of quick shout outs. Tyrone Mings got some good points last year. Comes in at 4.5 million. I said earlier about the opening fixtures for Villa, Bournemouth, Everton, Palace and West Ham in the first 4 if you want to start solidly. Botman, the new Newcastle signing, again coming in at 4.5 million. But I said prior, don't particularly want to start with defensive players who are not tried and tested in the Premier League because it's a step up. And another shout out for the Brighton boys. It's going to be Lamptey at 4.5 million. When he plays, we know he's got a high ceiling, but specifically Lewis Dunk, now at 4.5 million, sometimes on free kicks, great aerial threat. Only the 92 points last season, but again, 4.5 million for a Brighton defender who are usually very solid. And apart from starting at Manchester United away, who some would argue this is maybe a 3 on the fixture ticker, then you've got Newcastle, West Ham, Leeds, Fulham, Leicester, Bournemouth, Palace. Then you got Liverpool, Spurs, which isn't great, but we go straight back to Brentford and Forest. If he's going to be like what Tomiyasu is for me, sometimes maybe coming into my side when needed, where the fixtures are there, I think the Brighton boys could be good. Palace are offering some good 4.5 million options as well. However, the fixtures at the start of the season is definitely the reason why I wouldn't be bringing them in. And finally, Janssen and a couple of Brentford defenders. So again, if I said about Raya as your 4.5 million goalkeeper, look at the sea of fixtures of green here. Leicester game week 1, I don't think is right now a 4 on the fixture. I think that's a 3. United a 3, yes. And then Fulham, Everton, Palace, Leeds, Southampton, Bournemouth, Newcastle, I think it's going to be more difficult. And then Brighton, but just good set of fixtures that if you need a 4.5 million defender to just slot in for a week every so often with a good fixture. Palace, not good fixtures early on, but you could definitely look at Brentford, you can definitely look at Brighton, and you can also look at Leicester City if you're looking for those cheap 4.5 million defenders. So as we go over into the midfield, you can see I am sticking with Salah and Diaz. So a lot of people were saying, well, we don't need to go to Salah. I don't have Son, I don't have Cain. I do understand the risk in that. I did want a Liverpool key attacker, which is going to be Salah, and I did want a Manchester City key attacker. I've not gone for Kevin De Bruyne, I've gone for Harland, you can see, but sticking just for the midfield for now. Salah, I'm just going to start the season with him. He's going to have a full season under his full preseason under his belt. He's had a break, signed his new contract. He's now, Mane's left, which could deteriorate the opportunities of chances that he gets, because obviously he used to work so well with Mane, who's now at Bayern Munich, but now he's the out and out main man. He's on penalties, one of, if not the best FPL player of all time, and he's still smashing it in his prime. I know after AFCON there's a lot of question marks with him, but starting the season away at home to Fulham without Mo Salah is just something I don't want to do. And you can still see he's now double. He's 60.7%. The second one is Diaz, who's 30.7% owned. These stats, by the way, guys, the ownership stats are going to be really skewed because there's like 150,000 managers right now. The end of last season we were 8 million plus. I think it maybe even hit 9 million, but definitely 8 million plus. So don't worry too much about ownership now. Just focus on how you want to start the season and using players that you trust and believe in. You can't trust anyone more than Mo Salah. Diaz, Mane's gone. I think he's the other winger. He really lit up that side, really boosted that side, I think, when he joined in January. And I think he's a starter. So 8 million. You could argue Nunez at 9 million, but he's got competition from Jota. The thing is, Nunez, Jota, Firmino, Diaz, they can all switch around those positions all the time. But I do think the front line is probably going to be Salah, Diaz, and Nunez. Andreas, the Manchester United, Pereira, he's just been out on loan in Brazil. Done really well. Apparently, he's a signed deal for Fulham. So if he goes to Fulham, 4.5 million bench fodder that hopefully plays. That's all I'm looking for in that. Rafinha, 7 million. I don't think he's going to stay at Leeds. So when I said earlier about playing what you've got now, but with the budget and stuff and the way that the system's set out, even if he stays at Leeds, for 7 million Rafinha, he's so good. Great price. And when I talked earlier about the problem where 7.5 million and up, you've got great options, but it feels like under 7 million, you don't have particularly great options this year yet, until we get the Premier League underway and we can see with our own eyes who are those great budget enablers who are doing the business. I think Rafinha is the one. So speaking of the cheap player that I have, Neto. Pedro Neto at Wolves. Now, Wolves have a good opener. They've got Leeds and Fulham in the first two. So that's something I'll slide towards. He feels like a Twitter pick at the minute. I had a look. He had a bad injury out at the end of last season, and he was coming back into the side, but I still don't feel like he's nailed. I still don't think he's first choice. And don't forget, I even forgot about this. Adama Traore's back, so that's another winger, another competition. But 5.5 million, I'm gutted because Eriksen for 5.5 million at Brentford was going to be in it. He's not in the game now and he's going to Manchester United. He's probably going to be worth like 7. But Neto is the one that's in my side just now as a placeholder, purely because I need to think about future transfers if they go ahead. This is one that is very popular right now. People are very excited about a 5.5 million Neto. He's a bit of a baller, but just for me personally, I'm unsure if I'm going to start the season with him. So notable absences from the side. You can see no Heung-min Son kills me. I had the Son Cain double up throughout that golden period that helped me finish around 33k. They were fantastic, but for 12 million, if he'd have been 11 or 10, I'd have been laughing if he was at 10. But for 12 million, someone's got to give. And not just someone, it's either going to have to be Salah or Harland has to give, or I'm going to have to downgrade a lot of position. I'm going to have to downgrade maybe Trent, Cancelo, Cash, Trippier, Luis Diaz down to positions that I'm not really interested in starting with. So to not start with Son and Cain isn't great. I love having Heung-min Son in my fantasy Premier League teams. I rate him. My Spurs shirt has Son on the back. I just can't fit him in. It's not 3 premiums. I don't think you can make a particularly great squad with 3 premiums. I want to start with a solid squad that I can sort of start cutting money out here, there, and everywhere if I need to. But to start the season, to get Son in there, Salah or Harland's got to go. I don't want to get rid of those 2 because they're basically my first game week 1, game week 2 captains. And then that means I have to massively downgrade all around my squad. And I don't think Son is going to make up for that. Son and a couple of 5.5 million midfielders and 4.5 million defenders over what I have. I don't think adding those, because it's a game week total, right? So if Son goes ahead and scores 1 goal, that's great. But if I've had to sell 3 good players for 3 average or below average players that don't get me those clean sheets or those assists or those goals, it's not going to be worth it. Also, I like the idea of having a big 13 million price point if I do need to get off Salah, and a big 11.5 million price point if I do need to get off Harland for some money, because I've got 1 forward that's expensive and 1 midfielder that's expensive. If I put all the money in my midfield, for example, and have a very cheap forward, if I need to get to Harland, that's going to be a 2 transfer move, and I don't want to limit myself at the very, very start of a season anyway. Other notable mentions, I don't have any Arsenal. I had Saka for so long last year, and it's not that I don't believe in him. I think he's a fantastic choice. I said earlier why I've got Tomiyasu for some clean sheets, because their opening run to the season is great. But again, 8 million, I need to get a million from somewhere. I could go Diaz to Saka, but again, I believe more in Diaz than I do in Saka. So I get Rafinha up to Saka. Rafinha, if he goes to Chelsea, I think I just keep Rafinha. Even if he stays at Leeds, I'm tempted. But again, it's having me to get a million from somewhere, which means Cash has to go down to a 4 or a 4.5 million, and then Rafinha goes to Saka. That is a move that could be possible, but I just still don't fully believe in the Arsenal team, especially, bottling Champions League at the end of last season. I think I would rather stick with an absolute talisman at Leeds in Rafinha, who's absolutely class, rather than go for Saka, who is great and he is nailed. I've just not got the feeling for it. I think so. If there's a way that Saka's in your side, I think that's fantastic. I think he's a great option. I'm just not. I like my player and budget layout for this team right now, but if there's a way to fit him in, it's a possibility. Martinelli, people have been talking about Martinelli and Smith Rowe at 6 million. They're not nailed, so it's fine if you want to spend 6 million, but for that, if they're in your starting 11, don't be surprised if Smith Rowe is benched for Martinelli or Martinelli's benched for Smith Rowe, and don't be surprised if they play 50 or 55 minutes for 1-pointers, because they're going to sub on for each other, right? So just don't be surprised for that. Kevin De Bruyne, I said about the price points, so I don't have 2 premiums. I've gone for Salah. I don't need KDB because I've got Harland. It was one or the other, so I could sell Harland and I could put Rafinha to KDB, for example. That's a massive possibility. I could do that. When I get to the forwards, essentially, Haaland's all shiny and new, and he's going to be the spear point. He's not going to be a false 9 like Gabriel Jesus. I think Harland is going to be your out-and-out, full-on, complete striker. And I think that means Kevin De Bruyne doesn't have to or won't be as attacking as he was previously, because now Harland is that key source of attack. So 11.5 million, I think that's the way it's going to go. Other suggestions people have been talking about, Kulusevski, now with Richarlison joining, it's definitely Son, it's definitely Cain. Who's going to be that 3rd place? Richarlison's got the number 9 number, he's banned for the first game, so yeah, you might get Kulu for game week 1, and in game week 2, you don't know. And you've still got Mora, and I think Bergwijn's still there, so too much competition for 8 million. Bowen at 8.5 could be great. West Ham haven't exactly proved their side right now. and 8.5 they start the season at Man City. So again, that's someone I can bring in later. I don't have to start the season with a player who started Man City. Rashford at 6.5 has got a lot of people raising their eyebrows. Could be great value, but we're talking about a player who was absolutely great in 2020, 21, 2019, 2020. We have not seen anything at all to indicate to us right now that that is what we're going to start with. New manager with Ten Hag as well, so we have no idea if he's going to be in that starting lineup. Ronaldo's looking to move. That could be a great thing for Manchester United and for Rashford if Ronaldo goes. They do have good 2 fixtures against Brighton and Brentford, but they are defensively stubborn. But Rashford right now, again, he could be that player. When I said earlier about 8 million and above, midfielders have some great options. But below 7.5 million, I think it's scarce this year in midfield until we see the Premier League start. And again, if the Premier League starts and Rashford is in that starting 11, 6.5 million is easy to get in your side. Again, I'm starting with players that are a little bit higher in those prices. So, for example, Diaz is up at 8 million. Rafinha's up at 7 million. I could drop to these players that explode. You know, like Bowen last year who just exploded. Get those cheap players in later. Start with players that I know are really great right now. You can also see as well, I don't have any Chelsea in my team, period. Mount at 8 million. Kai Havertz is now a forward. Timo Werner, I'm not even going to discuss getting him in. If I was tempted by any Chelsea, it would still be Reece James and Ben Chilwell. Maybe Mendy in goal at 5 million. But until they start bringing players in and re-strengthening that defense and making them stronger again, I think there's value everywhere. If you offer me Mason Mount at 8 million or Saka at 8 million, I'm going to take Saka every day. So that's reasonable, notable omissions. Zaha is causing a lot of interest here at 7 million. Again, great, but similar to what I said about the defenders as well. Starting the season with Arsenal, Liverpool, Villa, not too bad, and then Man City. I'm not going to be starting my season with those players. Just a final point about midfielders, someone who I really did want on my side, and if I was going to get 8 million, it might not be Saka. It would actually be Riyad Mahrez. Now, I know he's been a troll, but I've always said that if Mahrez can somehow get some more game time, some more time inside this starting 11, oh, boy, is he a good asset. You're getting the winger at Man City. If Sterling goes to Chelsea, Jesus has already gone off to Arsenal. If this guy can get more nailed, I know there's competition. So if you've got Harland down the middle, you've got Foden, Bernardo Silva, if he's a winger or if he's going to play in centre mid, it depends on what Pep's going to do that day. But you've got Grealish as well. There's just, for 8 million, again, there's just that competition. If you go Saka at 8 million, you're getting that nailed good attacking player with good fixtures. But if Mahrez can get, if he plays 5 times out of 6, the potential, the ceiling for Riyad Mahrez is, for me, phenomenal. He's playing for the best team in the Premier League. He's got a sea of green for the first 10 fixtures. So if Pep decides to go for Mahrez, up front, you've got Harland down the middle. You've got maybe Foden on one side, Mahrez on the other. Or you've got Grealish or whoever. But if Mahrez can play sort of 5 out of 6, 5 out of 7 times, even though he's 8 million, he could be huge. Moving on to the attack then. So you can see I've gone 4-4-2. I'm going to explain why. So the first one is 4.5 million is just fodder. A lot of people out there are going to be trying to get maybe a 5.5 million Undav, the new Brighton striker, or 5.5 million Armstrong, the forward at Southampton, which is reasonable. Here's the thing. If you're going with Harland, 1, his injury record isn't great. 2, he might get rotated out. So if that's the case, if Harland's dropped for a game, he comes on for 1 point, then he's going to get you 1 point anyway. But if he misses a whole game, say City are 3-0 up, it's half time, why are you going to bring Harland on? Give him the whole game to take a rest. If Harland gets injured and you're looking at your front line, let's say it's game week 3, Harland's already 11.9 million because he's battered the first couple of games, and he gets injured for a couple of game weeks. And you're stuck there with Greenwood at 4.5 million, and a 5.5 million Undav at Brighton who might not be nailed, and Armstrong who doesn't play every game for Southampton. You're stuck that week for a forward. But if you start with a mid-price forward like Wilson or Watkins, for example, at Aston Villa, and Harland, if Harland's out for a couple of games and you have to bench him, Tomiyasu comes in for me, 4.5 million defender, and I'm fine to go with Wilson as my striker. So if you're going to go with one big striker up front, he needs a good buddy. I don't think you can start with a 4-5-1 because you're going to have to spend 5.56 million on a player who's going to sit on your bench, and that for me is just money wasted. If I get Undav in, so if I go Wilson down to Undav at 5.5 million, I've got 2 million to put in my squad. But if Harland gets injured or is rotated or is rested or whatever, that 5.5 million comes straight in because you have to play a forward. So it doesn't feel, and I'll talk about Wilson in a minute, but it just doesn't feel, just again, starting the season, don't fall behind is my tip here. Don't start a season with a ridiculous bunch of differentials. I'm not saying go, quote, template and get every single player that everyone else has got, but keep up with everyone at first, and that makes plowing up the ranks easier. If you can start to attack the rank earlier in the season rather than game week 10, you start with a full differential squad, no Salah, no Kevin De Bruyne, no Son, no Harland, and then you rank 5 million and you've got to spend the rest of the season fighting up. Or start with some of the players like this with good backup and then start to differentiate. Why I've gone for Wilson, I saw an interesting fact on Fantasy Football Scout. Pretty sure this is it. But if you go for Wilson's last 30, Wilson's problem is not his quality. Wilson's problem is his injury record. Because in the last consecutive 39 game weeks, I know there's only 38 weeks in the season, but if you go back 39 where he's played and he's fit and he's fine, he scores over 200 points and he's 7.5 million. That's Trent and Cancelo-esque, which I know they're 7.5 and 7, but for a forward to get that value would be fantastic. If he can hold his own with his, injury proneness, I think Wilson is he's a great striker. He's on penalties. He's the absolute nailed up forward in there. And the only reason he wasn't in a lot of sides last year, in my opinion, was because of his injury record, because he kept getting injured. If he can just finally put that aside, look at Antonio. If he can do an Antonio in the sense of his fitness and just put those problems behind him, he starts at Nottingham Forest in the opening game week as well, so he'll have a full preseason under his belt. Goes into game week 1 against Nottingham Forest. Brighton away is not easy. Then he's got City, but just start the season with this guy, and in game week 2 maybe transfer him out if, okay, knock him down to 6.5 million because Mitrovic can now play in the Premier League. But I do think Wilson is a quality striker for 7.5 million. And when he does play, he has massively delivered. And like I said, if you had the last 39 game weeks where he's played and he's been fit, he would have scored over 200 points, which for 7.5 million is for a forward especially, is fantastic value. So notable forward omissions, you can see, no Gabriel Jesus. I had toyed with the idea of that, but one, he massively underperforms his XG. He's not a clinical striker. He's like anti-Jamie Vardy, right? But he's also moving to a side, and this isn't trying to throw disrespect to Arsenal, but he's moving to a lesser team. So the amount of chances he gets at Man City, let's say he gets 100, but he goes to Arsenal, he's not going to get 100 chances anymore because Man City are a superior side to Arsenal. Why am I not... And Jesus doesn't have a good history record. Big one here is, why have I gone for Harland over Cain? Again, I said earlier, Harland's shiny and new, and I've been burnt so many times. One of the tips I always say, and it's why I don't have Perisic in my side, is start with the players you know. I've never, for the last couple of seasons, especially last season, I don't like owning Harry Kane. Sometimes he plays a striker, sometimes he plays a central defensive midfielder. That's why I always said Son was the better option, and he was last year. Kane is nailed, this is true. He also is notorious for starting seasons pretty slowly. Harland can be the game week 2. If we look at the fixtures for Man City, they start at West Ham, then Bournemouth at home. Newcastle away, they do really well against Newcastle. Palace at home, Forest at home. Those first 5 fixtures for Manchester City are lovely. Now, I'm not saying Arsenal's fixtures here. They've got Palace, Leicester, Bournemouth, Fulham, Villa. Oh, sorry, Harry Kane is what I'm talking about. Harry Kane, Southampton, Chelsea away, not easy. Wolves, Forest, West Ham, Fulham. They're equally, they're almost as good. But 1, I want a Manchester City attacker. 2, I like having something shiny and new. 3, Harry Kane is notorious for starting seasons pretty slowly. And 4 is sometimes he just doesn't do it for me. I watch Harry Kane, it depends on his attitude. When I look at him, on his body language, but sometimes he's a defensive midfielder. So for me, Kane versus Harland, I want a Manchester City attacker over a Spurs attacker. And Harland, I just think is another level. I know we call it like the Bundesliga tax of someone who does something in the Bundesliga can't do it to the same level in the Premier League. Just like we're saying a championship striker last year was Tony, this year is Mitrovic. They can't do that to the same level in the Premier League, but Bundesliga is a lot better quality than Championship. And also Harland has done this in the Champions League, and you watch him, he is just something else. So for the same price, something new. We know he's going to be the out-and-out striker. And I just think Cain starts season slowly, and sometimes I'm just so frustrated watching Harry Cain when I see him dropping deep and hitting the ball over the top. He'll get the assists. I think Harland's going to get the goals. Other notable omissions that I've not got in my side here. Darwin, popular choice, but I said earlier, I think the key assets for Liverpool are Alisson, Trent, Robertson, Salah, Diaz, and then Darwin. He's got competition from Jota, competition from Firmino. There's a lot of competition there. But we just don't know. I mean, they paid a lot of money. He is probably going to be in the starting 11, but he's 9 million. 8 million Diaz for goals and assists gets more point than a 9 million Darwin. So why am I going to pay 8 million for Diaz, who gets more points for goals and assists, compared to Darwin, who will get fewer? So it doesn't make any sense. Mitrovic, 6.5 million. So I've gone for Wilson at 7.5. If you just want a buddy with Harland who's nailed, sure, why not go for it? But if you think he's going to get like 35 goals in 38 Premier League games because he did somewhat similar in Championship, just look at Tony last year. Look at the other times Mitrovic and Fulham have been in the Premier League. I don't start the season with promoted players. It's as simple as that. I don't. Until if they come out as bargains, then I'll get them in. But I never feel confident back in the promoted side because the Premier League is just a whole new level. Diogo Jota is a 9 million forward. Is just not going to happen. He's not nailed. And again, fewer points compared to him when he was a midfielder. Jamie Vardy at 9.5. He's had a decrease. Getting older. Leicester not looking as strong. Brendan Rodgers doesn't feel like he wants to be at Leicester. He hasn't felt like that for a while. It's a little bit stale at Leicester City. I mean, look at the defenders. They're all worth 4.5 million. Something not right there. Watkins over Wilson could be a good shout. We talked about the openings. Fixtures: Bournemouth, Everton, Palace, and West Ham in the first 4. Wilson's the huge player there at Newcastle. Watkins can sometimes maybe get benched or put out to the wing or put back a little bit. And we just know sometimes when we talk about a clinical player, Watkins might not be it. And Wilson's got penalties. I'm not too sure Watkins has. Havertz at 8 million. Again, he's a forward. He's not a midfielder. And he's more like a false 9 at Chelsea. He's not your out-and-out striker. Now, if Harland turns out to be a false 9 at Man City, he'll be out. I'll sell him. I'll get Cain, or I'll downgrade my midfield and I'll put my forward and I'll put my money in my midfield. But I just think Harland is going to be the spearhead of the attack. Just like I think Jesus is going to be the spearhead at Arsenal. Havertz is a false 9. Sometimes he'll score, sometimes he won't. Ronaldo might want out of the club. Sources everywhere citing that he's asked to leave. And then apart from that, just like I said about the midfield positions, the quality just deteriorates. It's kind of like a 7.5 million forward or a cheap, hopeful bench appearance like a 5.5 million Undav or 5.5 million Armstrong. Or you're going big with the likes of 8 million plus Jesus, Darwin, Harland. Maybe Tony's second season, Brentford might feel more comfortable, but I usually believe in second season syndrome where that team actually deteriorates rather than improves. Especially if they've lost Eriksen and they have not made particularly any signings so far this summer window. So the final point I just want to circle back to this year until we see the Premier League kick off. Here's what I'm talking about. So 8 million and above, you can get the likes of Foden, Mahrez, Diaz, Maddison, Mount, Saka, all the options I believe over 8 million in midfield are solid. Go and then usually you've got a bunch of 6-7 million and below midfielders that you can get. Sancho 7.5 might turn some heads. Coutinho had some big barren runs. Zaha has a difficult opening start to the season. Barnes he's trolled a lot of people. It's hit and miss. Rafinha for 7 million is excellent. Grealish could be great, but again, rotation risk. Bernardo, is he going to play centre mid? Is he going to play wing? Is he going to get rotated? Ødegaard 6.5. Maybe I would agree. Rashford, if he's in the starting 11, would be fantastic. Same maximum back to being midfield could be great, but I'm backing Wilson and I don't want to triple up on Newcastle. Ward-Prowse, usually a great player that ticks over the season, but Southampton's opening start to the season is Spurs, Leeds, Leicester United, Chelsea. Isn't great. Martinelli, Smith Rowe, they both rotate with each other, so why are you going to spend 6 million on people that rotate? Chelsea defensive mids, Buendia isn't nailed. Leeds and Fulham midfielders, defensive mid for City, who now could get rotated out with Calvin Phillips. People might be leaning towards, again, I'm not going to triple up on Newcastle. Bruno, Guimaraes could be a good shout here at centre mid for Newcastle, but I just think anything below 8 million now for midfield just isn't worth it. So that's why I'm backing the 4-4-2. I don't need to go any much bigger at the back. Neto is the one that he's a huge Twitter pick. He's got great stats, but he rotates a lot. He had a terrible injury last year. He's the one in my starting level right now where I'm thinking, I'm not 100% sure about that. But everyone else, Edison is like a season keeper, 5.5 million for a Man City potential clean sheet guy here. Great. Cancelo, Trent, don't need to talk about them. Cash, best defender outside the top 4. Attacking, nailed, pretty much plays every game. Trippier, class player on free kicks. Newcastle improving their defense and improving their squad, and he's nailed as well. Rafinha, 7 million if he stays at Leeds or if he goes to Chelsea. Talisman at Leeds, fantastic player if he goes to Chelsea. Salah, Diaz, Liverpool attackers. Harland, Manchester City's main man down the middle. And then Wilson, Talisman, key man at an ever-improving Newcastle side. I just really like the 4-4-2 and I really like this template. And then if we go here, Andreas, Greenwood, 4.5 million, nothing. But might get a couple of minutes every now and again. You've got Andreas, 4.5 million, currently at United, should be going to Fulham. Even if he plays defensive mid, I'm just looking for a 4.5 million player who plays football for 90 minutes, that if he comes on because I'm having an injury nightmare or whatever, I've got a guy who comes on for 2 points. Begovic, non-playing 4 million goalkeeper because Edison doesn't get rotated out. Touch wood, Pep, don't do this. And Tomiyasu, a great player that can swap with Cash or Trippier when they have a very difficult game. So Trippier against Man City, okay, I might drop him for that. Tomiyasu comes in because Arsenal have a fantastic opening run to the season. So that's going to be it for today's video, guys. Hopefully I'll do some more pre-season. I've got some things coming up for the stream as well, a little bit of interactive creativity stuff if I do streams. I'll hope to stream and do videos again this season as my daughter gets a little bit older, but I still thank you for your support, and if you can leave a like and subscribe and share or whatever, it really does help me out a lot. I know I can be inconsistent at times. It's not because I don't love FPL, I'm not passionate about it. I'm going to be a manager in the Fantasy Football Scout, the competition that they have, where I was a player last year. I'm going to be a team manager. I'm going to be picking people for my Fantasy Football Scout tournament team as well. So I'll be keeping you up to date about that. It's just life. That's what happens, guys. I've got a young daughter, work all the time. So that's just how it is. I'm going to try and be consistent again. But we'll just see how it goes. Hopefully I'll see you all soon. And as always, have a good one.